Okay, last week I promised that I would have part 2 of the 7-bumper lining drill, and which turns out to be quite an operation to really explain it fully. So here goes. The idea of the 7-bumper lining drill is to focus and go there and not be affected by other elements besides where you're looking and where you're going. So the first general configuration is like what you see in the picture now. So you start with 7 bumpers, and I'm not going to try to explain why there's 7, but in my land fundamentals, water fundamentals, etc., I get into a lengthy discussion of why there are 7 and how it does have an importance. But basically, the starting point is 7 bumpers in a row, and they must be visible. If they're hidden in the grass and the dog can't see them from his vantage point, it's not that you can see them, it's the dog has to see them. That's the prerequisite. They must be visible to the dog regardless of where you're standing. So this is the first look that you're going to have. 7 bumpers, equidistant apart, about 5 or 6 feet. Can vary later on when it's with a more advanced dog, but the beginning is 5 to 8 or 10 feet apart. That would be step 1, letting a dog see this. Then, with the beginning dog, you're going to move forward and to the side so the dog is in a position where he can only see 2 of them. That makes your job simpler because there's only 2 to look at, and you're trying to get your dog to look at one of the 2 that are showing. After you have past the initial beginning section, this is what you're looking at. And in this particular picture, as you advance, you're going to move further and further to the right or further and further to the left, whichever suits the way the field is set up or the length of grass or which is more visible, etc. You can go either direction, left or right. And your goal is to be able to focus on the farthest one away from you and go for that. But as I just said, the beginning is to just pick 2, the 2 on the right side or 2 on the left side. In this case, it's going to be 2 on the right side. Get up close and move so that one is slightly further away than the other, and you're going to try to get your dog to focus on the farthest one, as is shown in this shot. So here you have the last 2 bumpers in that row, and you're going to try to pick up the furthest one away. Get the dog to focus on it and go for it. If he goes for the wrong one, you stop him, call him back to you, and move even closer so you can't miss and get that farthest one away. Maybe you're only about 6 or 8 feet away, but they have to understand that there's 2 possibilities, but they're only going to get one of them. And after you pick that one up, then you back a little further down the line and pick the next 2 and the next 2 until you're finished. And hopefully by the end of doing that 2 or 3 times, you end up with a dog that sort of understands that the one he's looking at is the one he's got to get. So you want to practice that until you're pretty sure he's going to look at one of the bumpers and get it. When that happens, then you can back further away and have more of the sequence, more of the 7 bumpers in sight. So here's a picture of the 7 bumpers, and you're starting like at position 1, and you get the furthest one and work your way back towards the shortest one from position 1. Once you've done that a few times and you're pretty good at it, then you move to position 2, get them from that position. When you're solid on that, and this doesn't have to be in one day, this can be over a period of days or even a couple of weeks. So then you're going to go to position 3, position 4, position 5. In the end, you want to be able to do what we would call the advanced version, which would be almost the next position over, which if this picture had it, it would be position number 6. So this is a picture now of where you would be in the advanced position. You're pretty tight to the line, to the long bumper, and you get that one first and then back up down the line. You get closer and closer to the exact line. A really advanced dog can almost be about a foot away from the short bumper on the right and lined to the long bumper all the way at the end of the row. Once they understand this, they focus and get that bumper. When they make a mistake, you stop them, bring them back to you, and move forward to a point where they totally understand which bumper they're supposed to be getting. The aim is that they get the bumper that they're focusing on. Another extreme value of this drill is it teaches you to get your dog lined up right, because if they're not lined up right, they're not going to get the right bumper. I used to use this to teach clients how to get their dog lined up right. And when you're doing this drill, many times it's best to have somebody behind you making sure you're lined up right and the dog is lined up right next to you. If you have a two-sided dog, once you get doing this advanced version, you're going to alternate left heel and right heel. When you're finished, you can go back, put your bumpers back out and go down the other way, back this way towards this side. So you're alternating, doing one way and then going and coming back the other way, while alternating left and right heel. It can be very great practice in getting yourself to line your dog up correct, getting him to look where you want him to look and to go where he's looking. Okay, now here's the same configuration, except we're transferring to water. So in this picture, you're going to start with the far bumper on the right, and then the next one down the line until you finish with the bumper on the left. Focus and go there. In this drill, when it's on the water, you need to have a dog that can handle, because most of us are not able to walk on the water, so we can't go out there to them and help them, so we have to handle. So in this case, if they're swimming along, going for the far right bumper, and they cut in to one of the other bumpers, the concept is to handle. The end result of this drill on the water is to do the opposite of what is natural to the dog. The natural thing to a dog is to be swimming and then cut into the bank. That's what dogs do. It's the opposite of fish. Fish, if you throw them up on the bank, they jump back in the water. When dogs are in the water, the natural thing for them is to jump up on the bank. So this drill teaches dogs to not do what is natural to them, which is curve into the bank. Now once the dog really understands this and it's important that they do understand it before you do the drill that's pictured here, which is a very advanced version, but they have to almost parallel the shore, going right past all the temptation of the other bumpers and get the farthest bumper away, and then on down the line. This can be made even more difficult if the wind is pushing them towards the shore. It's very difficult and takes a lot of practice, but once they are practiced and can do this accurately, they then become very proficient at down the shore type marks, watermarks in general, and focusing as a bonus. Really helpful when you're doing complicated marks or blinds that are involved in the water. Okay, now we're gonna mix things up a little, because we're gonna talk about some of the benefits beyond just lining of the 7-bumper lining drill. Here is a picture of the 7 bumpers lined out in sort of a medium difficult way, but we are then throwing a mark way out across the point, as you can see, back into that back cove. And the white bumpers in a row, the 7-bumper lining configuration, just represents a temptation of what the dog would naturally do. They would swim towards that mark and then fade into the shore to the left. And those bumpers are there as a hint that that's a mistake to cut in early. So we're using the 7-bumper lining drill here to accentuate, to make more clear the fact that the line to that mark is to go straight over the point and not cut into the bank on the left and then deviate and go down towards the mark. So it highlights the benefit of the 7-bumper lining drill, because you can use it to build other concepts. Because of the skill learned in the 7-bumper lining drill, they then can utilize it in learning other concepts and other ideas. So here's another example of the same thing I was just talking about. We have a blind that's past the left-hand side. It's over the spit of land, past the point and out into the field. But we're using the 7-bumper lining drill just as a guide to teach the beginning concept of not going towards a white object or something that's more desirable than the blind would be. So it's an example of the value of the 7-bumper lining drill to teach other concepts. There's people that I have worked with that do blinds between these marks way out into the field. It's very advanced and not something we're going to talk about right now, but I know some people that, for instance, if you move the blind from where it is in this picture 2 bumpers down, the gap between the second and third, you'd be going between that, through the water, over the point, back in the water, and then back out into the field. You can do that, but my advice on that is to wait till they're extremely solid on what this all means. So here's another example of what I was talking about a few minutes ago, and that is using the 7-bumper lining drill to teach other ideas, other concepts. So let's say you have a young dog and you're working with teaching them to cut corners of water, to not run around the edge of the water, to go straight. You reverse the idea. You start with number 1, then 2, then 3, and down the shore to bumper number 7. But you'd start with a land with number 1, then number 2 is a little closer to the water, Then number 3 would be a very, very much of a sliver. If you look back on some of my blogs, I had a drill called the sliver drill that taught this exact idea, but teaching it in a different way. But this is a way to use the 7-bumper lining drill to teach a corner of water, because they see the white bumper and they're focused on it, and that means that's where you go. Not around the corner, but straight towards it. And then you finish up. Now think about all of the things you could do with this idea. Over logs, over boats, on hillsides, through ditches. You can teach almost any concept that's a difficult one by using this idea of focusing and going where you're looking. Another point I'd like to make on this particular configuration is that it's one of the few examples where you would do the shortest bumper in the lineup first, normally, and you still can here. You can still do number 7, number 6, number 5, number 4, work the other way. In fact, it would be a great idea to be able to go both ways and make the idea even more clear to the dog, what you're trying to tell them. The message is, you go straight to where you're supposed to end up. Don't deviate based on the natural factor of the shoreline. It's A to B is where you're going. And you take this particular drill, this way of doing the drill, and apply it to countless situations. And if you practiced enough, you'd have a dog that had initial lines that are almost unbelievable. So I just thought I'd show you this final example of extreme down the shore. It's almost parallel, a few feet off, and it's very difficult to do and takes lots of practice. It's a very, very big step to be able to do this correctly. But I just thought I'd throw it in as something to strive for. When you're in a position to be able to do it, you'll be very proud of yourself. Now here's another example of what can be done with this concept. This is a channel. That's the same as a road, a ditch, any long angle that's almost impossible to line from one side to the far end of the opposite side. So the 7-bumper lining drill is a way to teach that concept. Okay, here we are with a channel. Now you can pretend this is a road, a ditch, a hillside, anything that is difficult to angle from bottom of one side to the top of the other side. It's almost impossible in a ditch, but a channel is pretty hard, a hillside is pretty hard. But this is an example of how you teach it. You start it the long way and you work yourself back. So it's just a beautiful thing once you can do it. If you didn't have the white bumpers along the shore, to handle from point A to the far side would take many, many whistles to teach that angle. But once you have this set up, you can teach the angle and you can repeat it and you can practice it until it's easy to do. So it's very, very helpful at teaching these long, difficult angles where the natural tendency is to go either hard right or hard left, but not to hold the angle. Okay, here's a beautiful example of really being creative with the 7-bumper lining drill. You'll see here there's a bumper at the end of the channel, just outside over the point to the left of the channel, one to the right of the 2 trees, one between the 2 trees, and then a couple to the left of the two trees. And what you have is developing a sequence of lines through very complicated situations. And you can dream this up any place you go, any property you have, and you can practice this. And after the dog understands these angles and lines, then you can take the white bumpers away, put orange bumpers down there, and get the same lines, but you've already practiced and taught the idea. You can see the great number of possibilities that you can create using this idea. You can dream up anything that you want to teach. You want to teach focus, you want to teach getting lined up right, and going where you're looking. And then once that's been done, you can practice that. You can take this concept that you're looking at, this configuration here between the trees, the left of them, the right of them, down the channel, to the left of the channel, all that, and you can practice those lines until your dog's good at it. And you can take the white bumpers away, put orange bumpers down, and still get that beautiful alignment and focus. Then you can look around. You can look off to the left. You can look off to the right. You can pick anything you want and teach any kind of focusing concept that you think your dog needs. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to teach and learn. So in the meantime, stay with me one more minute. Got an important message coming right up. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spread out its roots by the river, and will not fear when the heat comes, but its leaf will be green, and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor cease from yielding fruit. Jeremiah 17, verse 7 and 8.